Now, you'll have seen on the screen the words God's Word and Me, and I'm going to be introducing a new feature in this week's live stream meeting. In previous weeks, we've introduced Bite-Sized Bible, where we just try and break down the Bible into bite-sized chunks. We've also gone behind the face mask. We were behind the face mask with Jeff McNichol last week, and we had Sam Davison a few weeks ago. We also have the Big Family Catch-Up, the feature formerly known as Life in Lockdown. And this week, we're introducing a brand new feature, God's Word and Me. And we have a very special guest to launch that with us this morning. So I'm going to introduce you now to Major Noreen Batt. Major Noreen, along with her husband, Major Roger Batt, they're our divisional leaders in the North Western and North Wales Division, and they're soon to become the divisional leaders in the newly formed Wales Division. So our loss will be Wales's gain, but that's not yet. It's still our privilege to have you as our leaders. And Noreen, you're also the divisional leader for leader development. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be with you.
Hope it's all okay down there in Liverpool.
As always, the sun is not quite shining, but
brilliant.
It's not raining. So
right. Thanks you so much for joining us this morning. We just want to hear something about your experience of God's Word. As the title says, God's Word and Me. So we want to hear your story of what God's Word has meant to you and continues to mean for you. So I've got some questions. I'm going to ask quick questions and then allow you to talk. You're our guest. So here's my first question for you, Noreen. Can you tell us how you came to know and love the Bible and how you've grown in your knowledge of God's Word over time?
Yeah, well, it started when with having parents who love and know the Bible, and through I think I learned from them through conversation, through teaching, also through drama. Mum and Dad were very keen on exploring the Bible through drama. Also, I was brought up in the army at a time when we used to have two Sunday schools on a Sunday. There was Sunday school and directory class, so we learned about doctrine in sort of childlike ways. So my whole childhood was soaked in the Bible. But then when I was about 9, 10, 11, that kind of time, I used to keep an autograph book, and I asked an officer who was on the training college at the time, Colonel Ernest Denham, if he would write his autograph in my book, and he asked if he could take it away for a little while. And when he gave it back to me, this is what he'd put in the book. He'd done this painting, and underneath was the verse from Psalm 119, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." Now, as a youngster, I was amazed, not only at the drawing, but the fact that how did the Colonel know that was my favourite verse of the Bible at the time? And I think that was the first moment I remember thinking, now, can God actually speak to us personally through the Bible? And that picture for me has been like an image implanted in my life, I think, of the beauty and the depth of what the Bible can mean to us, and how God speaks to us through it. And then when I was a teenager, I decided to go to university and decided to study biblical studies. So I spent 3 years studying the Bible, almost tearing it apart, actually, on a literary basis. I learned Hebrew and Greek, and I spent a lot of time immersed in the Bible, but find it hard sometimes to sort of get to the heart of what God was saying to me. And I studied Isaiah 40 in Hebrew and loved doing that and looking at the translation. But it's when we were having a Bible study with the students, and it dawned on me in a wonderful way that the whole Bible is God's love letter to me, to us. You know, it's not just a book to study and a book to get to know. It's actually a way of encountering who God is. So they were quite defining moments for me in my love for and knowledge of the Bible. And over the years, I've tried to explore the Bible through personal reading, and that's sort of gone in waves and rhythms. And sometimes I've been great at keeping that in my devotional times, and other times I found it hard. But I've also got to know the Bible through sharing in Bible study with others, but also through preaching, through drama, through creative ways. I did a Bible study group once where we looked at passages, stories from the Bible, but for example, made a banner or did a flower arranging Bible study once, and looked at the story and then recreated it through flowers, through drama again. I've loved godly play as a way of exploring the Bible and being given permission, as it like, to wonder and ask questions. So all of, it's been such a wonderful journey, and I've got some regrets that I haven't got to know the Bible as well as I could have done, but I'm still on that journey of discovering God through the Word.
That's really helpful. Thank you. It's really encouraging to know that a major is still on a journey of discovering this love letter from God. We never get there, do we? We're still learning and experiencing more of God. So one of the things you said, you talked about you've not always quite got there, as far as you'd like to and studied it enough. Sometimes we feel guilty about haven't read the Bible every day. Can you tell us just a little bit about how you use the Bible in your day-to-day life and how it shapes your life and ministry?
Well, if I could reflect back on the last year and use that as I say, I've tried lots of different, daily reading books over the years, and only ever found one that really resonated with me, which is a Celtic daily prayer book. I've tried, reading the Bible in a year and sort of got as far as Kings, I think was the furthest I got, and then sort of dropped off. So I decided that I've just got to not beat myself up, but go with the flow of what God's saying at any one time. So last year, for example, and it's literally a year ago when we first went into lockdown, I found myself immersing myself in the Psalms and read all the Psalms over that first period of lockdown, because you discover there it's okay to feel despair and that lament factor, but also we can trust in who God is, and there's places of rejoicing in the desert. So, and then I went on to look at the prophets and read right through the prophets and tried to read them in order along with the historical narratives as well. And just try to understand what God's purposes are for the world and for every nation. So I've tried to, keep coming back to understanding God's presence with me, with us, about his covenanted love for us. And we read that time and time again. I've tried to understand his purposes, which we can see. We see the patterns over generations, and also try to understand sort of how he wants me to shape my life. Now, for me, over lockdown particularly, we've done something at DHQ since Drew and Bev introduced us to it. It's called Rhythm. And when we were in the office, some mornings we would meet together as a group for those, and we simply read. We read through a book of the Bible together, read a few verses, and share with each other what we discover of God through it. In lockdown, a small group of us have met 2 mornings a week and shared John's Gospel. And for us, that's been a lifeline. Well, for me it has, because of looking at the life of Jesus and seeing how he faced life and how he brought people together, how he loved people, loves people. And while we're talking together, we're reflecting on who Jesus is, but also how that shapes our life and how that shapes our relationships and how that shapes how we respond to each other. So rhythm has been that time of rhythm for us has been incredibly important for me to bring me closer to Jesus. And another thing we try to learn is that whenever we're presented with a decision in our work, and we don't do it for every occasion, but we're trying to learn how to do it, when we've got a critical decision to make, we will spend time, we will commit to spending a time reading the Bible, you know, in our own devotions, and listening specifically to what God is saying about the decision that we've got to make. And then after a period of time, we come back together and share what God has said to us, and find as a team that we're able to come to a decision together based on what we've each sensed God saying to us. So that's been a new dimension for me, how as a group together we make decisions based on what we understand God is saying through the Bible.
Great,
and
thank you.
that's very affirming and exciting.
Yeah. An ancient book really does have applicability to the modern world. Thanks
Absolutely.
for that. One very quick question and then one more, a piece of advice to younger people. But the first of all, what's your favourite part or book or verse of the Bible?
My favourite verse is Joshua 1:9, where God says, "Be determined, be courageous, don't be afraid, for I am with you wherever you go." My favourite part of the Bible is the Gospels, because it tells us about Jesus. And my favourite book of the Bible is Isaiah 40 to 55, that part of Isaiah, because of the poetry, because of the great picture it paints of God.
Wonderful, thank you. And finally, as I said, a piece of advice. If you were to encounter somebody who said, look, I'm just starting out with the Bible, I really don't know how to begin, where do I start? I don't know, I can't make any sense of it. What do I do? What advice would you give to somebody who came and asked you that kind of question?
I would say you don't have to be an expert in anything. You don't have to understand all the context or all the history or all the language. Just believe that God will speak to you through it. If you want somewhere to start, I would suggest Luke's Gospel as the story of Jesus and his interaction with people. But as I say, just believe that God will speak to you, and he does through his Spirit in ways that we can't understand and hardly believable, but it happens.
Great. Thank you so much, Noreen, for sharing. I know you're trying to distill a lifetime of experience with God's word into a few minutes, but it's been fascinating and really helpful, and it's shared something of your heart for God's word and God's heart for you. So thank you so much.